Welcome to Civitas LA, featuring diverse and emerging leaders who make up this dynamic region and are creating community every day and building a better tomorrow. These bi-weekly conversations enable us to hear from, learn from, and be inspired by a new generation of civic entrepreneurs who are forging a path forward in making our region a stronger, more resilient, and connected group of citizens. Our goal is simple, and that is to elevate civic discourse, foster community connections, and promote civic knowledge and engagement across the greater Los Angeles region while elevating diverse and emerging voices in that conversation. In 1978, Women's History Month began as a local celebration in Santa Rosa, California. The Education Task Force of the Sonoma County Commission on the Status of Women planned and executed a Women's History Week. In 1980, a consortium of women's groups and historians successfully lobbied for national recognition, and in February of that year, President Jimmy Carter issued the first presidential proclamation declaring the week of March 8, 1980, as National Women's History Week. It was in 1987 when Congress passed Public Law 100-9, designating March as Women's History Month. But I'll quote from former President Carter, who said, "From the first settlers who came to our shores, from the first American Indian families who befriended them, men and women have worked together to build this nation. Too often, the women were unsung, and sometimes their contributions went unnoticed. But the achievements, leadership, courage, strength, and love of the women who built America was as vital as that of the men whose names we know so well." So on behalf of Civitas LA, we are extremely excited to celebrate Women's History Month 2022, and we're really excited by the lineup of terrific guests who will be joining us this month. I'm also grateful to CGI Plus, Real Estate and Investment Strategies based in Woodland Hills, for their interest in our work and their generous support of this month's Women's History series. In studies by Pew Research Center, surveys show that Americans largely see men and women as equally capable when it comes to some key qualities and behaviors that are essential for leadership. And overall, the public sees benefits to female leadership, with majorities suggesting, and I quote, "having more women in top positions in business and government would improve the quality of life at least somewhat for all Americans." That said, Civitas LA is delighted to be joined in studio this morning with two emerging dynamic female elected leaders in our region, City Council members Denise Diaz from the city of Southgate and Lindsey Horvath from the city of West Hollywood, as they share their experiences as active community leaders, their respected journeys as elected officials leading community, and their perspective on the challenges and opportunities they see in growing female elected leadership across our region. On this beautiful day at Emerson College, welcome Council members Denise Diaz and Lindsey Horvath.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Such a beautiful welcome.
Thank you. Great to have you here. On Civitas LA, we always appreciate our guests sharing a brief self-introduction. So we can always read your extensive bios, but we'd like to have you tell us about yourself. So take a few minutes. Let's start with Councilmember Diaz.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dwayne, and thank you to everyone listening. It's a true honor to be here with you, Dwayne, and with the phenomenal and dynamic Councilmember Horvath. Denise Diaz, who is she? A girl who grew up in Southeast Los Angeles and saw the numerous inequity issues that go on in this community, decided to be very vocal and get civically engaged to make sure that no longer is my community disenfranchised and overlooked. Born and raised my entire life in Southgate in Southeast LA, and here I am continuing to be vocal.
Excellent. Welcome. Ms. Horvath.
Oh, wow. What could I share? I guess since it's Women's History Month, I'll share that, for those who don't know me from the city of West Hollywood, it's really been an honor to serve in the women's movement. I helped to create the Hollywood chapter of the National Organization for Women. I served as president of National Women's Political Caucus. I served on the board for the YWCA in Glendale. I'm a proud supporter of Planned Parenthood, and it's been an honor to work alongside alongside people who have fought for women and girls. I started even my career in local government as a women's advisory board member in the city of West Hollywood, where we worked to clear the backlog of untested rape kit evidence in Los Angeles County. And so I think that really comes from, the spirit of my grandmother, who was widowed at the age of 37, had 4 boys she had to raise. She worked 2 full-time jobs, barely making ends meet. My father grew up in poverty. And when she aged and needed care, she came into our home, so we had multiple generations under one roof. I know that's the experience of many Angelenos, and it's those women who step up and do the caretaking and the providing and the just being there for you, no matter what stage of life you're in. I think that really makes a difference in all of our lives. So really inspired by her, and try to carry on her spirit in the work that I do.
Excellent. Well, before we get into our core conversation, we always love learning more about our guests through our lightning round questions. Okay. And this enables us to get a sense of your Los Angeles, or in this case, since you're from West Hollywood or Southgate, but this is broadly Los Angeles. And I know for Councilmember Horvath, we're gonna hold you to something that I read recently, which states, when she's not at the job, you can find her frequenting the hidden gems of the LA County restaurant scene. So we're expecting some real knockout winners from you in the lightning round, Councilmember.
Oh, okay. We'll see what I can come up with.
So you ready for the lightning round? Councilmember Diaz, favorite restaurant or 2?
So favorite restaurant, obviously I'm going to promote restaurants in Southeast LA and Southgate. One of them, Root of Life, 2 young entrepreneurs that started in the local Southgate Park. And their story, they mentioned how their cars even got repoed to be able to pay the rent. And now this press juicery, all vegan, all raw Mexican food, is doing phenomenal. Okay. And also Eat Good. Eat Good is local residents from the city of Southgate, grew up in Southeast LA, went to local schools, and decided that enough is enough of having all these food deserts. Yep. And they are providing organic and healthy eateries. So Eat Good and Root of Life, I welcome you at any moment, Dwayne. Excellent. And Lindsey.
Excellent. Ms. Horvath, favorite restaurant or 2?
Okay, I have to shout out a couple. So I love going to Sunset Marquee. The restaurant there is Cavatina. Okay. And it's one of, I think, the hidden gems. Even for people who live in West Hollywood, they don't always know that it exists. And when you go there, it always feels like vacation. It's really lovely. I love going to Craig's. It can be a scene. It's where I take my family when they come in from out of town. But the food is so good. Craig is just exceptional. And I have to shout out Taisho, which is in Sherman Oaks, the former GM of a place in West Hollywood, Katana, which is lovely on the Sunset Strip. He went out on his own and opened up a place in Sherman Oaks, and it's not quite been a year yet, but if you haven't been there yet, it's such a great place. You got to check it out.
We haven't heard that one yet. Yeah. A favorite place to take a sip, whether that's a coffee, tea, or a cocktail. Denise.
I am going to mention and also promote folks that take that risk and come into Southgate and Southeast LA, the Hound Bar. The Hound Bar is woman-owned bars. Oh, wow. One is Novocaine in the city of Huntington Park. That's all about woman empowerment. The Hound, she's a huge fan of the Game of Thrones. Okay. So the whole concept is Game of Thrones. It's the Hound, the character, and it's all craft beers and breweries. So
in Southgate.
In the city of Southgate.
I have to go. I love Game of Thrones.
Definitely
Lindsey.
Invited.
Oh, gosh. This will give away so much if I tell you all the answers. So maybe I'll just stick with
just a favorite place.
One of the best places to go out in West Hollywood is Rocco's WeHo. It's a new scene started by among others Lance Bass from NSYNC. Mm-hmm. So harken back to my high school days. But it's a really fun place to go out. They have a great sports scene, but they have a great nightlife, and they're right in the heart of our Rainbow District. And he's got
a new spot across the street.
He does. It's Heart. It's opening and it's open now, and it's a really cool place if you haven't checked it out. It's like brand new. So,
okay. Yeah. Favorite place to take a visitor, Denise?
So I really enjoy taking walks in my community to get to know the residents and the needs and the challenges that are going on. So down Southern Avenue, interesting history. Southern Avenue, Southern was Amelia Earhart's flight flight instructor.
Okay.
So we made it into a park, a walkway park for friendly for dogs, for the animals, and that's where I love just to chat and walk there.
Excellent.
So as I mentioned, have to go to Craig's. A lot of people love Lisa Vanderpump's places, so we, go and check those out, whether it's Tom Tom or, any of those. But I think where I really love to take people is some of our local parks. Some I've been able to help create, and so people like to see that. But we're just opening up West Hollywood Park. We just invested over $100 million in renovating it, and it is absolutely extraordinary. So taking people there is already a joy.
Excellent. Well, we love open space here in Southern California, so that leads us to give us a favorite hike or favorite park. Lindsey.
Okay, so I just mentioned my favorite park now, but I know Runyon Canyon. I know everybody goes there, but everybody goes there, so you get to see everybody, and it's real close, accessible. I love going there.
Denise, do you have a favorite hike or park?
Okay, so I am going to just continue promoting my phenomenal area of Southeast LA, Holladale Park. So Holladale Park has a huge equestrian community. You have a lot of the Compton Cowboys coming down to us. You'll walk down, you'll see blue herons, you'll see golden poppy flowers out there. So I love taking folks it's in between the park and this huge concrete. Soon we're going to have the Sella Cultural Center there where the LA Philharmonic is going to be present as well.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you referenced the Compton Cowboys because if you talk to them, we've been trying to get them on the program. So that's a good ask. I appreciate that. So give us a hidden gem, someplace that people may not know about. Ms. Horvath.
Oh, gosh, a place that they want. Well, here's what I'm going to answer that a little bit differently and say, How about the Rainbow? Everybody thinks they know the Rainbow, but when have you last been there? Most times I hear that people went up on the Sunset Strip, a long time ago. But the Rainbow is as vibrant today as it was 30, 40, 50 years ago. Okay. And so I think I love hanging out there. So,
excellent.
Yeah.
Denise, give us a hidden gem.
A hidden gem in the community of Southgate. So Southgate was what still is, an extremely thriving community with the main General Motors and the Firestone plant. So we made sure to keep all the historical figures out there. So for me, it's that hidden gem of how the first Mustang was built in the Southgate plant. So I would love taking folks out there.
Excellent. And, as elected leaders in your respective communities, we always love promoting community events. So give us a favorite community activity in your city, Ms. Horvath.
Oh, I got to go with Pride. I mean, it's what else can I say? And we're excited this year. We're doing our own WeHo Pride, and it's going to be the first weekend of June, and it will have the whole festival experience. We hear there might even be a parade back this year, but it's such a wonderful celebration of our LGBTQ community. It's a wonderful celebration of the West Hollywood community, and it's a great way to bring people together. And it's nice to see families come and just everybody see themselves reflected in the celebration. It's the best of West Hollywood.
That's great. Denise, give us a favorite community activity.
It will be the Sella Cultural Arts Festival. It's the entrance is through Holladale Park. It's down in the confluence. Pretty neat because it's down on the LA River. You have all forms of arts, theater arts, visual arts, music. You have a huge Ferris wheel. You have culinary arts. You have so much energy. And it's us promoting the arts in Southeast LA. So I welcome everyone. We're gonna bring it back this summer.
Okay. So when is that taking place? I know Pride is in June. When is this event?
It's supposed to be in June as well.
Excellent. So busy.
We'll have to go to each other's events.
I
know. A busy June in LA. Let's hope we all get back out in public again. So, as a podcast focus on elevating civic knowledge and engagement and hopefully engaging, folks in the life of their respective communities, share with us what civic engagement means to you personally and what led you to becoming more civically engaged. Let's start with Councilmember Diaz.
Yes, and this is what I continue promoting to the younger generations, hence why I started so many youth employment programs. I reactivated the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, the Kiwanis. It's just so needed to start early on to get folks civically engaged to, being vocal. If they don't like something, say something. If you see something, say something as well. So why did I get involved? I got involved because of the environmental inequities that go on in my community. Reading a study that I lose 10 years of my life just because I grew up in the 90280 is not okay. Seeing young, residents in their playgrounds with asthma inhalers is not okay for me. So I started a community environmental action team. It was a group of friends from the city of Southgate. It was 6 of us. We were all in our early 20s, and we actually just started door knocking and telling folks, hey, do you guys know that you live in close proximity to Superfund sites, brownfields? Not to blame anyone or the current, folks that were sitting on council. It's just stuff that happened during the industrial, times, whether it's one of them was the Purex, which was a competitor of Clorox. Another one was a company that was adhesive. We're actually really close by to the Exide battery plant. So we were just out there surveying folks, and not even one person even knew they were in such close proximity of these Superfund sites. And instead of them, they were telling me, like, Denise, like, I wish I had more trees, the graffiti, the broken infrastructure, all of these little issues just started getting me more motivated. And I started seeing, I was like, you know what, why not? So what did I do is I picked up that clipboard, got those signatures, and I walked with little money, almost no money. I walked to the point that, I know TMI, but I did lose even a toenail because I walked out there just to make sure, because I literally grew up, I'm one of the only ones that grew up in Southgate, went to the local schools. My sisters are teachers there. My parents decided to come in 1978 to Southgate, open up a small business, and being vocal about these equity issues and being tired of being overlooked.
Yeah. So a lot of environmental justice issues got you motivated. Lindsey, what does civic engagement mean to you, and how did you start your civic engagement community journey?
Civic engagement is really about feeling a sense of ownership and belonging in where you live, and making where you live something you want to be proud of. And for me, getting involved specifically in West Hollywood, it's just the ethic there. It's part of the reason that people love to be in West Hollywood. We always want to be looking out for others. It's a social justice city. It's a human rights city. And so using the platform that we have as a community to come together and help each other, but also use the strong voice that we have for the LGBTQ community, for our aging residents, for our Russian-speaking immigrants. We have taken a stand for so many people, not only in our community, but all over the world. We were one of the first cities to speak out about apartheid in South Africa and use our platform in that way. I authored our resolution opposing Arizona's SB 1070, which was that discriminatory Show Me Your Papers law. We have always stood up and spoken out for the people. And I think that's really what civic engagement is about, is, having that sense of ownership so your community and you can stand up for people. I think Denise's story is very inspiring, and her experience, fighting for your community, it gives you a sense of ownership and a sense of pride in your community. Then it's not, I'm just going to call somebody to come take care of the trash or whatever. It's, I have a sense of ownership in doing that.
Well, I think when we had a community spotlights episode focusing on West Hollywood, and one of the participants was a colleague of yours, Councilmember John Erickson, and I think he referenced that it's a city of 35,000 or so people with 36,000 opinions. so it is a highly active. But we're going to talk about the level of engagement in your respective cities, because I know West Hollywood is very, very active.
Yes.
But as we discussed on a previous episode as well, we posed the question of why serve, and there are a lot of people doing just amazing things at the really hyper local level. Some don't want to get involved in the elected arena because it can be a challenge, shall we say. Denise, you've talked about door knocking. So, why serve? How do you get motivated to actually run for office? You've taken your concern, your interest in these issues, but then you decide to run for office in your city. How did you decide to do that, and why? Denise, let's start with you.
Actually, thanks for Facebook reminder. I looked into, my campaign was filled with over 50 high schoolers, and seeing their little faces whenever I would come back, he's like, how many yeses did you get? It was me feeling an obligation to represent them, for them not to go through the issues I had to go through during their age, whether it was an overpopulated high school, whether it was increase in crime, lack of green space, and now 5 years later, it's us 2 new parks in the city of Southgate, right? It was me spearheading cleanup of these brownfields with EPA, going to DC and being very extremely vocal. So one set example, Lindsey mentioned Pride. When I brought the idea of Pride to Southeast LA, mind you, we're an extremely conservative community, about 95% Latino, Catholic, Jehovah, evangelic. So I didn't know how they were going to take it. But I'm so fortunate that I reached out to folks in West Hollywood and Long Beach to guide me and to be there for me to be strong. And so brought the first Pride in Southeast LA.
When was that?
This was 2 years ago. 2 years ago. And we couldn't, it didn't happen because of COVID. But what we did was a Pride parade. And so I decorated, me with Vice Mayor of Huntington Park, Eddie Martinez, we decorated a little car in a Pride flag. So we had the Pride Mobile going around the city of Southgate. I get an email that same evening from a young resident saying, "Thank you so much. I looked out my window. I was washing my dishes. I came back home from UC Irvine. My parents don't accept me." And me, for some reason, I looked out and the little Pride Mobile drove by my house. Thank you, because I had suicidal thoughts.
Oh, wow.
So it's those leadership things that, despite me getting heat on the council meeting of all these extremely conservative community leaders and pastors telling me the worst of the worst and getting threats on Twitter, it was that one email that I was like, wow, I saved someone's life.
So that's why you serve.
That's why.
Ms. Horvath, what got you from being an active and engaged community activist to actually running for office? And I know you've served as mayor twice now in West Hollywood.
Yes. Well, Denise, sorry, I'm moved by your story. It just, how can we just not love one another, right? It seems like that's what we're supposed to be doing. For me, I got into elected office actually in a sort of strange way. We had a council member, long-serving council member, pass away when he was in his 90s, which left a vacancy on the city council. And so initially I got onto the city council through an appointment. They went through an appointment to fill the vacancy. I think like 37 people applied, and through a process I affectionately refer to as the American Idol of politics, where everyone gave 2 minutes.
37.
Yeah. Wow. And we all gave 2-minute speeches in a specially noticed council meeting.
Interesting.
And then the 4 council members who eventually became my colleagues, they were sort of the panel hearing everybody out. They narrowed it down to like 14 or so people. And then from there, they went through several rounds. The first round, pick your top 5. And everybody named their top 5. And I was the only person who got all 4 council members.
Wow.
And it kind of went on from there. By the end of it, we now know the story. I got there. But
that's great.
But
Okay.
I ran, and I ran to keep my seat. I didn't win. I served on the Transportation Commission for 4 years, eventually becoming vice chair and then chair. And then my friend and mentor, Abby Land, who had been on the council, she was the only woman. I said she was going to leave the council. I said, well, what are we going to do, Abby? We need women on the council. And she said, well, and I said,
Run.
oh, no, Abby.
Run, yeah.
I did that before. It didn't work out so well. And as usual, she was right. And so I ran in 2015. I won the day I was sworn in. My colleagues asked me to step up and become mayor. And so I spent my first year of my first elected term as mayor. And it really, I did it because I care about my community. I saw the issues, whether it was at the time traffic and parking. Now we see the challenges of homelessness, of community safety, and making sure that we take care of people. And so, for me, it's really just about stepping up and being of service. And it's because I was asked. They often say that women need to be asked multiple times. I think something like 9 times before we actually do it.
We're going to talk about that.
So,
actually. Exactly.
So being asked.
That's a good segue, because you've touched on a couple of your favorites about West Hollywood. But I think I probably should have been better asking this at the very beginning of the conversation, is that particularly for our audience that's not LA regional, and I'm so grateful that we have downloads in multiple countries around the world. Why don't you give our audience just a quick overview of the city of West Hollywood.
Okay.
What drives that city? Where is it located? How many people? Give us a quick overview of West Hollywood.
Sure. We are 1.9 square miles of the most fun you'll ever have in your life. We are from east to west, roughly La Brea to Doheny. From north to south, we are Sunset Boulevard, Santa Monica Boulevard, a bit of Melrose and a bit of Beverly. We are the Sunset Strip and the Design District and the Rainbow District. We are the Lot, where OWN Network and Showtime and so many are today, and so many classics have come from. We are Russian-speaking immigrants and older adults and LGBTQ people out and proud. And we're 36,000 residents, and that's where we are. We're nestled in between Los Angeles and Beverly Hills, and I know a lot of people think that they are claimed by like Mayor Garcetti or something. When he came and helped on my reelect in 2019, he called a couple of people and they're like, "We voted for you," and he was like, "I know you didn't because you live in West Hollywood, but thank you anyway," And sometimes people don't really know where our boundaries are, but everybody knows that that feeling of being in West Hollywood.
Well, I've never, in my 18 years in Los Angeles, I've never heard that saying, so I'm going to use that from now on. That's 1.9 square miles of the most fun you'll ever have. So
Absolutely.
Good to know.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to Southeast LA and Southgate particularly.
Yes.
Denise, give us an overview.
So Southgate, the great city of Southgate, we are located about 20 minutes from LAX, about 30 minutes from Long Beach. We are 7.3-mile radius, 100,000 residents, according to the last census. We're estimating we're about 120 now, thousand. So we are extremely dense, but you know what? Very resilient community. Heavily industrial when it comes to the aerospace. We're still building a lot of the parts from the airplanes. Mm-hmm. So where do I welcome? Firestone plant. Firestone Boulevard is the main Firestone plant was there. Like I mentioned to you, General Motors. We built the first Mustang, Amelia Earhart's from there, not to mention Cypress Hill. For those of you that love hip-hop, Cypress Hill, born and raised in the city of Southgate on Cypress Avenue. I actually just mentioned last week, Be Real, I was talking to him. I was like, you guys should have been at the Super Bowl half.
Okay. And what a Super Bowl that was. Well, certainly, one of the challenges that we've had here across our region is getting folks sort of motivated and civically aware and engaged. So in your own leadership journey and as leaders in your communities, how have you worked with community to address challenges and issues that were high on your agenda? And what were some of the key policy areas that most animated you in engaging community? Let's start with Denise.
So for me right now, specifically because born and raised in Southgate, and it's so common for folks my age, we grew up with our parents trying to make ends meet by working 2-3 jobs. So not really civically engaged. Mm-hmm. So now you have a new generation of residents that are young professionals that are either starting their businesses, went to higher education, buying their properties in the city of Southgate and Southeast LA. And I'm seeing new voices appearing to our council meetings, which is great. I'm seeing them very active, something I really wanted them. But I think a lot has to do with how vocal I am and how I engage them to participate, whether it's constantly surveying them, asking them, because it's not just me making the decision. They live there too, so I want them to be part of the decision-making process of it. So, I think I have a huge battle in front of me, but I'm seeing the coalition that I started of Southeast LA electeds. We're called Cela United. Mm-hmm. And all of us, if you see all of us, we're younger professionals, young electeds, changing the optics and the image of Southeast LA, whether it's battling AQMD with the rendering plants that we have with those atrocious smells that we get, or Metro trying to take away our promised West Santa Ana branch line. They were trying to push it from 2054. We all just organized and said no. And thanks to Supervisor Jonas Hahn. And those are the instances that it's all about unity, because what happens in Southeast LA, folks don't know when they cross borders. Okay. They don't know when they stepped into Cudahy, or they're in Maywood, or they're in Southgate. So might as well just unite. And we're seeing such a huge change, and we're finally getting folks to pay attention to us in Southeast LA.
That's great. Well, certainly, Councilmember Horvath, West Hollywood tends to be a fairly aware and engaged community.
Oh, yeah.
So speak to some of the issues that most animated you in leading community, and how you engage with community to solve some challenges, and any achievements that you want to highlight.
Sure. So taking a lead from Denise, we have been advocating for the Crenshaw Northern extension of Metro Rail as well. And, it was a project that wasn't supposed to be talked about till the 2040s. And when it is constructed, it will have the highest ridership of any light rail line in the country. So why wait? So we really banded together, not just our community, but all the communities that will be served along this alignment. And, because of redlining, communities in South LA were intentionally segregated and separated from communities like West Hollywood. So we really see this as a social justice line. So I personally attended over 300 community meetings, not just, again, in West Hollywood, but all along the alignment to hear what people's concerns were. And that, that's how I've led. But it's important to really understand and meet people where they are. And so because of that, we've been able to get interest in it, get going, and we're already doing studies right now, and hopefully we'll be soon enough shovel ready to make it happen. But outside of that big project, which we're really excited about coming to West Hollywood, there are the daily issues. I talked a little bit earlier about the backlog of untested rape kit evidence that we worked on, and it really took the partnership of then Supervisor Yaroslavsky, but a lot of community organizations came together, and the leadership of then City Controller Laura Chick, who shone a light on what was going on in the city of LA, for us to say, well, what about County of LA? What's going on there? And so we stepped up and made that happen. And it happened because people came together and cared about it. And so, today whether it's a proposed development in our community, whether it's how do we do better than our 80% success rate on getting people housed and into services who are unhoused in our community, whether it's, how do we continue keeping the community safe? Our crime rate is down about 20% from 5 years ago, but we can always do better. And there's still that feeling, in the community of, is it okay for me to be walking my dog late at night? So how do we bring people together on those issues rather than letting them divide us, which we see happening in so many places?
Lindsey, something you mentioned earlier in being asked and having Abby Land be there to ask you to step up and serve. There have been a lot of reports about, how females approach leadership differently than the male counterparts. And I know something that Denise mentioned in terms of putting on a pride event in Southgate, and certainly West Hollywood is a more progressive community, shall we say, yet, had only one female elected leader. So, how do you think, being female elected leaders, your approach to leadership in your communities were different, given that you've got two very different communities in terms of sort of, the politics of those places?
Sure.
Lindsey, start with you.
Sure. Well, as a woman, we've certainly experienced what it feels like to be discounted or thought less of, or have to fight harder or overcome more barriers in order to get what we need. And so I'm mindful of that in how I serve, and it's why I intentionally reach out to try and bring more and different voices into the public conversation. I think that's more typical than not of women leaders. And, one of the things that I did with a new female council member, now Mayor Pro Tem, Seppi Shine, we created the city's social justice task force, where we literally gave a seat at the table to people who live, work, and have connection to the community at the table, who are people of color, and to help them, to allow them to help advise us on how we can be doing better. What help us see our blind spots. What are some things that actually will make a substantive difference? And I think that's that's what women try to do. We try to see put ourselves in other people's shoes. We try to see those blind spots and bring people together and build consensus.
Mm-hmm. And how's it been for you, Denise, over in the Southgate, as you've now had a number of years on council? How has your male colleagues sort of warmed up to your leadership?
I'll be honest with you, it wasn't easy at first, especially of my age. It was holding holding them accountable and as well correcting them from, no, you cannot call me kiddo.
Oh, really?
I mean, those
Okay.
little comments
Yeah.
are not okay, right? Like it's not okay for you to call, my other male colleague council member, but me kiddo. So I think it's that, and changing that. Also, to my respective neighboring colleagues, educating them too on how we're equal. Set example. One neighboring colleague was like, you know what, this assembly seat's vacant. And I was like, we're not going to let a woman lose that seat. We're going to continue placing that woman there, right? So what have I done? When I first ran, I was one of the first younger electeds in Southeast LA to win into office. Made sure not to forget. Let's not forget, it's about loyalty and integrity. So those young ladies that were there for me, Lisette Flores, helped her run in her campaign. She was successful. Elizabeth Alcantara helped her run. She became successful. Already two-time mayor, Lisette Flores. And right now, it's really being there for each other. I literally text Elizabeth Alcantara that now is running for assembly. I told her, I was like, if you need me to be your driver, if you need me to go to these interview process, whatever you need, I'm there, because it's about that support.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to ask you, in a region of 88 different cities, I know there are local government organizations, like I know Lindsey through Contract Cities Association, there's the National League of Cities, but, across this region, are there structured organizations for female elected leaders to communicate, collaborate, coordinate, share issues, ideas? Does that exist? And are there, any notable, female leaders who've been particularly helpful to you in your own journey? Lindsey?
Yes. So actually, I served, I'm now a past president of Women in Municipal Government, which is an association through the National League of Cities. So it's a nationwide organization to support women elected officials at the local level specifically.
Okay.
And it's been a great resource and community for me personally, professionally, and a great resource to find new ideas of how you can serve community. Yes, there's some sisterhood, and we share those horror stories that we experience as women, but more importantly, it's a great place to come together. So if you haven't checked it out, Wimage is a great place to be. As you mentioned, I served as president of California Contract Cities Association, and I helped to make sure our board was a majority female, and it was the first time, I think, in the organization's history, and just bringing women together from all over LA County to serve, yes, with men too, but to really bring our voices and perspective to bear on these issues that we face together has been really exciting. And your sisterhood in Southeast LA is so cool. But I think, there are so many women who have made possible what I've been able to do, from Senator Feinstein to, all of my sisters from Contract Cities, Denise, and so many others. I think Laura Chick was very instrumental in helping me see in myself what I didn't see in terms of elected leadership, because this is not what I thought I was going to be doing with my life.
Okay. Interesting.
And I will go back to college. My thesis advisor, my friend and mentor who just came to town, Teresa Phelps. She was in the law school at Notre Dame. She taught gender in the law. It was a class that I took even though I was an undergrad there, and she has a remarkable personal story, and was among the first women on campus there as students. But she also she's just persevered in so many ways, and the interest that she took in me, not just academically, but also to see my activism really come to life, was incredible. And I don't know where I'd be without her.
That's great. Denise, are there any notable women leaders of our region particularly that you would point to that shepherd your
there's
journey?
two. So Latinas lead have been there for me from early on. All those ladies, Susan, Diana, Erika, Jaques, all of them have been Mary Rosas. Really have been my cheerleaders, and if it wasn't for them, I don't know where I would be, just especially because I was the first one to be there. Hope, great camaraderie there, and it really is.
Pardon me. What is Hope?
Hope, Hispanics of Opportunity for Political Equality.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
So both of those organizations. It's Brisa Sotelo. It's all these phenomenal women that are constantly checking up on me, and really just, I love that. it gives me hope. There's times where, in my communities, not only folks forget that we're there to serve our residents, but we do have a personal life, and this is actually volunteer work. I only get a whopping stipend of $650, so I do have my 8 to 5, and it's a lot of things, but it's those cheerleaders that I have that really keeps me going.
And I
want to shout out one more.
Please.
Supervisor Sheila Kuehl.
Yes,
she
who's
is
stepping
absolutely remarkable, and she has led. She's leaving a legacy of so much, and so we're just really lucky that she chose to serve the state of California, the county of Los Angeles, and all that she's done. I mean.
Yeah, no, that's great. Well, I know Brisa Sotelo, she's the new chair of BizFed.
Yes,
so
she is.
Congratulations on that.
And Lindsey did Choral Women in Leadership, and I actually just got accepted.
You did?
I did. So I think that'll be a great resource for both of us.
Well, we love Cora, and we were grateful to have Natalie Samardzian on as a podcast guest. So, there was a report talking about, contract cities, Lindsey.
Uh-huh.
And state and local leadership and support groups. The Center for American Progress issued a report a couple years ago talking about there being only 2,276 women in state legislative bodies across the U.S., and that's only 30% nationwide. And that Nevada, of all places, I shouldn't knock Nevada, actually, is the only state where women represent 50% plus of state legislatures. So I'm wondering, here we are in Southern California in the LA region, what are some of the challenges that you see here in our region with respect to women getting involved and then getting elected and then rising in leadership? And I know, Lindsey, you're looking to rise in leadership, so we'll get to that next. But what are some of the challenges here in our region, do you think? Denise?
For us, I think what I'm starting and what I saw, I'm going to talk about all of California. Mm-hmm. What I'm following is the footsteps in Coachella Valley. Coachella out there, kind of similarities on environmental inequity issues, but they just collaborated and really united and strategized. So they backed up the supervisor, Miguel, my God, I already forgot. Supervisor of Coachella, then the mayor of Coachella, then the school board. And this is what I'm trying to start in Southeast LA. If we know there's going to be a vacancy, an opportunity, let's all sit down and see who we're going to start placing in these vacant spots, specifically for women. And I'm so grateful to have my neighboring colleagues, Ali Saleh from Bell, Jose Solache, that said, yes, it's time for women to be in these leadership positions. So thank you to our male allies in Southeast LA that are really backing us up. Not just backing us up with their word, they're backing us up with helping us fundraise and actually getting volunteers for us, because that's what it comes down to too.
Mm-hmm. Lindsey, what do you think are some of the unique challenges of this particular region of getting women involved, getting them elected, and then seeing them rise in leadership?
Well, I think one of the biggest hurdles is just the tone and tenor of political discourse these days.
Okay. Good point.
It's distasteful at best, and in many times, and so women sometimes are just like, I know I need to be involved, but I'm not going to do that because that's just not for me, and so that can be a turnoff from the outset. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But having to fundraise in very expensive races, and just. I would say not always getting that support network. There are some women who are very good at supporting other women, and your sisterhood is always an inspiration to me, Denise. But there are some women who, talk a good game about that and then don't really back it up. Okay. And so, that's also challenging. We really need to support each other. And so you think there's going to be a support network, and sometimes there is, sometimes there isn't. And so I think it's, how do we invest in making sure that women have an opportunity? And so organizations like Close the Gap, which pay attention to the numbers that you mentioned earlier, how do we close that gap in the percentage of leadership in mm-hmm. California? We aren't even at 50% representation, which is sad. And so they are looking long term. What are the races further out? When will people term out? Who's in that area? Who's kind of, an up and comer or sort of on the horizon that could run for those seats? And they invest in people early. They help you see the resources around you, so you're able to run. So we need organizations like that that really step up and help invest in women, so we can overcome, whether it's self-doubt or not understanding the resources we have to invest in our own success.
Right. Well, we're not mainstream media here. We're just a simple little podcast. But we always love any breaking news that you want to share. So, what are some of your goals for your current roles as council members? And then what do you see next for yourself personally and professionally here in the region? Denise?
So like I mentioned earlier on, Southeast Cultural Center. Unfortunately, the LA Times did a front cover saying a hopeful project. Really upsetting when they titled it a hopeful project, because it's a project that's long overdue in my community. The fact that one of our already stable tenants will be the LA Phil is huge for me. Okay. So really grateful that we have our county supervisor, then pre-districting Hilda Solis, now Janice Hahn, Speaker Anthony Rendon, and Southgate. I am going to continue seeing, because we still need a couple more funding, going to continue to see where am I going to get that funding from, because that cultural center is a must. And we will be able, so we're hoping it'll be open 2024. And I'm going to continue calling out these folks. It was not okay for the LA Times to call it a hopeful project. You're going to see it. And I'm going to be inviting them to write a couple of articles on it. For me, it really is just continuing on the equity issues, right? The equity issues and the housing crisis that we face. And really excited for what is in the near future.
Right. Well, Councilmember Horvath, we certainly look forward to watching your efforts as you, as I understand, seek to take your leadership in a city of 36,000 to this broader stage of county board, where these districts are massive, representing something like 2 million residents.
Yes.
So share with us your thoughts on leaving the rough and tumble of West Hollywood to the rougher county position.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm leaving West Hollywood. If I have the honor and privilege to serve on the county board, I'll have more resources to help my community and all of the communities of the district. And West Hollywood, I think, has prepared me well. It's the experience I've had leading on the local level, directly making impact on the issues that people care about most, that I think has me competitive in this race, and why I've been able to resonate not just in my community and West Side and to the coast, but all the way up into the valley. We hear people say that they haven't gotten their fair share, and my opponents in the race both represent the valley, so they're looking for something different and somebody who can step up and help them.
And those districts are rather huge. They represent like 2 million people, plus or minus. Wow.
Yes, and so I'm excited to be able to bring that on the ground experience and relationships I have at the local level. County government is local government, and it is that social safety net that we all count on. And so this is an opportunity for us to really make sure that there's somebody who makes sure we're investing at the local level.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great. Well, council members Diaz and Horvath, this has been a great conversation, and we're excited to learn about the work that you do, and we really appreciate your passion for community, and we appreciate your insights on the great hotspots in your respective communities, and we certainly look forward to your continued role in leadership, not just female leadership, but leadership here in our region. You left us with a lot to think about here. But as we say on Civitas LA, the guest gets the final word. So share with our audience a final thought or a call to action. We always like calls to action. Ms. Diaz.
Lindsey just mentioned right now, how her passion of giving back, and I think both of our mottos is don't move, improve. And I asked everyone listening, improve the communities. We all have a say. I think it's also about social responsibility. And our area is a sanctuary, so let's take care of our areas where we're living.
Mm-hmm. Ms. Horvath, the final word, final thoughts, call to action.
Two things. I guess the action I would say is, we need you now. A lot of people think I'm going to do that 10 years from now, or when I'm retired, or after my kids are grown. But your experience, your life, what you are living through is exactly what we need in terms of representation in local government. It's that your voice that we need in community conversations. You don't have to be an expert in all things to show up and know your community. And so we need you now. So please step up and get involved. And I also just want to thank you, Dwayne, because this is truly a passion project of yours, and it's a great way to be able to communicate with people and have a resource that we can direct other people to. So it's not just this conversation today, but so many that you've had before, and you didn't have to do it, but you were inspired to do it, and you took it on as a passion project. And I just want to thank you because it's a gift you're giving to so many people.
Well, thank you for saying that. And this is episode 58. So who knew that we'd be 58 episodes into this journey when we launched in July of 2020? Well, this has been a great dialogue, and we appreciate both of you so very much. And we look forward to following your respective leadership journeys, and hopefully we'll find you back on this podcast again. Denise and Lindsey, thank you so much for being here and kicking off Women's History Month, because we do know, as we've heard on so many podcast episodes, representation matters. So thank you for representing. And to our audience, thank you for tuning in. As always, we hope you enjoyed this program, and we hope you'll join us in 2 weeks as we continue our Women's History Month series with another dynamic leader in our community. And again, we want to thank our sponsor, CGI Plus Real Estate and Investment Strategies, for their support of this work and sponsoring this Women's History Month series. To learn more about them, please go to www.cgiplus.com. And as we like to say on Civitas LA, until we meet again, stay strong, and don't forget to get involved. To learn more about Civitas LA and to share feedback on this program or recommend a future program, please visit us at www.civitasla.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook at Civitas LA, on Instagram at Civitas_LA, and on Twitter at Civitas_LA.